I think that's okay.
My husband. I mean, I think we need to. Water out, thank you. Well, he's a smoker. His mom died. Dad died when he was 15. I'm sure his mom died. I'm with him. I'm with him. His money.
My mom is 95.
Yeah, both my parents. She's my sister.
Oh, well, that doubles down on the pain.
She's very good at what she does. Yeah. Well,
I think I need to not be in here. I think so. I shouldn't be logged in because it's capturing me. Yes. I'm getting out of here. Can somebody else log in?
So you want me to log in with mine? And if it's on the appointment? The link?
So I'm going to let everyone know out there that we'll get started in about 3 minutes. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We're very grateful. And thank you also to everyone who is joining us online. If you're joining remotely, please let us know if you experience any issues with audio or the visual. We have someone monitoring a chat so you can let us know if you have any trouble. My name is Elizabeth Schwartz. I'm the co-chair of the Professional Development and Recognition Subcommittee of the PNA Senate. So on behalf of the PNA Senate, I want to welcome you here today. I think we have a great presentation lined up on the topic of financial wellness. So we're really looking forward to hearing from our expert speakers today. I want to thank our speakers for being with us. Joining us today, we have Anne Dooley she's a financial advisor with Criterion Financial Group, and she'll be discussing financial retirement planning. Next, we have Daryl Dahlheimer, a program director with LSS Financial Counseling, discussing financial counseling. And then we have Joyce Cerrito, an associate professor from Family Social Science at the U of M, discussing college debt readiness. So we thank all of them for being here for this panel. How this will work, we'll have each presenter will give an overview of their topic and a short presentation, and we'd like to leave time for question and answer at the end too, so you can be prepared to be thinking of your own questions during the presentations. And we also have, if you're online, we'll be monitoring your questions via the chat through WebEx. So please, when we ask for questions, you'll be able to type them in there, and we'll be delivering those to the group as well. So thank you. I want to move on really quickly from the thank yous because we have a lot packed into this time today. So first, I'll introduce Anne Dooley, as we'll be discussing retirement planning as our first speaker. So thank you so much. And I think you're all set here too with your presentation, and you can just advance it here. Okay.
Thank you for having me here today. And everyone who has a packet of slides, your slide packet's quite a bit bigger than the presentation that I have, and the extra details in there will support our support materials for once you leave here. You're going to get a little bit of a homework assignment from me, so you'll want those slides for that. Maybe. Nope. This one?
Now use
yeah. Okay, so today we're going to define your destination, because retirement is unique for everyone, and there are some aspects that we tend to experience. It starts with defining your destination, then looking at the various phases of retirement. Yep, they've asked me to speak up, so if you can't hear, I'll try harder. And how you'll fuel those phases of retirement. And finally, to keep you on course, we're going to look out for some really common financial roadblocks. Let's start today by setting the coordinates for your retirement. I've provided a workbook, which is, looks like this, and also a fold-out handout that you can take with you. So we're going to ask that you define your destination and what is the definition of retirement for you. That's that big gold book. I encourage you to fill that out, and if you have a significant other, actually have them fill it out with you. Make sure that the two of you are aligned and where you're going. What does the end point look like? Depending on how old you are, you're going to want to revamp that definition as time goes on. The smaller book is a fold-out, looks like a cross. Based on your age decade, there's just some small checklist items in there to make sure that you're keeping on course. So there's some takeaways for you. Which way are you headed? Again, retirement is a unique journey for all of us, and you have a lot of options to consider. The world keeps changing for us, so how you're going to spend your time is key. And will your retirement include work? Who's going to depend on you when you're retired and your income changes? Will you be supporting someone who's older, maybe a parent? Do you have children adult children maybe that you'll be sponsoring, or grandchildren, or others? You know, where is your income going to go? And then also, where is home base for you in retirement? Do you have multiple homes? Do you have a single home? Or will you be traveling? Those are some really big keys that you're going to want to have a heads up on. I'm not quite sure what I did there. I don't think I did anything, but maybe. Thank you.
Yes, I'm apologies.
I'm going to keep going.
Apologies, yes,
So that's
keep
okay.
going,
She brings it up. So there's a slide that I'm going to put up here. I'm not going to go through all of the details on it, but it's from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and it speaks to how an average retiree spends their day in retirement today. So as you're going on your journey, you can kind of just clock in and see, you know, how does that look like, and what does that look like in comparison to you. Next, we're going to define the route that we work through. So the first phase of retirement is actually not retiring. It's called the building up years. That's the initial phase, and this phase is all about accumulating savings so that you can afford to retire someday. Setting money aside now helps you in the long run. The earlier that you get started, the better, because your money has time to compound, which is earning interest in gains on top of interest in gains. And so getting started is a really good thing. And then also setting a course for developing a savings pattern is extremely beneficial. And that's where your U of M plans can help you. Both the faculty plan and the MSRS plan are really great benefits for you, as they have a component where you, as an employee, are contributing each payroll, and so is the U on your behalf. So that's a really good start. In addition, there are optional savings plans that you can apply to, both a 403B and a 457, when you get at the point that you have additional savings. So let's see here. I think that's the intent, is that the end. Am I hitting the left click or the right click? I really am afraid to touch.
Yeah.
Yep, that guy, right?
Yeah, that one.
All right. Roll through here. So once you are getting into the next phase of retirement, which is when your aperture starts to focus in on actually when you may retire, those last working years, you may start phasing into retirement. This period of time typically involves really intense gathering of your financial information and exploring different types of retirement scenarios for you. And it's a great time to start test driving your passions. What is it that you want to do in retirement, and narrowing in on that scope? Gearing up this stage is all about exploring and preparing for the next phase. Things to consider during this phase is your current mix and suitability of investments in your portfolio. What are your current assets? What are your anticipated future expenses for income? How will you use income streams that you've accumulated over time? When do you want to start drawing on Social Security? What's the right option for you? And how you'll manage healthcare costs, which is a big concern, and items that aren't specifically covered by Medicare. And then what are the tax implications of drawing down on your assets over time? You want to make sure that your assets last for a very, very long time, and you pay as little tax on them as possible. So strategies for there. Again, lots of support slides in there. The next phase of retirement is taking off. This is your mid-retirement years, often considered to be the most exciting period of retirement. You're definitely hitting your stride. You're actively pursuing the things that you wanted to, and you may be engaged, maybe still in some form of work, a business venture, or all of those great volunteer type things that you wanted to pursue. During this period of time as well, you're still actively managing your house, and it could be a time where you're choosing to downsize a home or current residence, but you're living a carefree lifestyle, and you're also tracking your spending and expenses. Many of us during this period will reach the magical age of 70 and a half, and that's when required minimum distributions kick in from the IRS. So if you have retirement plans, different types of savings, or your traditional IRAs, if you haven't already started to draw on them, you'll need to take a distribution at that time as well, just to plan for how is that going to affect your income and taxation. Taking off is all about maximizing your life experiences and keeping your financial footing for the next phase. I'm just going to let it go. So the final phase here of retirement is called cruise control, and that's the phase known as also late retirement. Your life may be quieting down, you have patterns that emerge, contentment sets in, and you're managing your health. Might be your prime issue during this phase. It's a time when family takes on a greater significance, and many retirees consider leaving a legacy if your financial resources allow you to do that. So during this phase, it's important to review both your medical and financial documents and make sure that they represent your current wishes. Cruise control is about maintaining your health, considering legacy, and spending time in a way that you find most meaningful. While most of us tend to go through the phases in retirement just as we did early in our lives, nothing here is autopilot, and annual checkups are necessary. See if I can do this right. Good. So your financial fuel. Now that we've defined the stage of retirement, let's turn our attention to a new topic, and how will you fuel your retirement years? Fueling retirement today, retirees rely on four common sources of retirement income, but not in the same proportion as their predecessors did. So guaranteed for those of you that are much younger than me and in your early part of your careers, it's going to look different for you, and you're going to have to keep up on how is this going to work. In the past, you had a lot of traditional defined pension plans or defined benefit plans, and upon retirement, people got an income stream. Between that and Social Security, they did pretty well. Today, quite a bit more of your income and your goals are set based on your own personal savings, and that kicks in quite a bit. And there will continue to be regulation changes, tax changes, things like that, that will affect how you draw benefits in the future. So this is a good heads up to a place to pay attention, so that as you're building out your financial roadmap and your planning, you can make small pivots along the way as opposed to being detoured. So we're going to just take a really quick glimpse into what are some of the common roadblocks and detours, so that you're less likely to get knocked off course, and you'll be informed and prepared to deal with any major risks that may affect your retirement income. Keep in mind that your journey is unique, so the information with your personal retirement, take this information with your own personal dreams and goals in mind. The common retirement roadblocks to watch for, which may affect your retirement nest egg and income, are living a longer life and staying healthy, which sounds like a really awesome thing, but your income has to last for a longer duration, so you need to be very, very planful of that. Hopefully you get to enjoy spending it. That's a really great realization. Rising healthcare costs, this should be no surprise to anybody, and what portion of it will we have to be accountable for? The effects that inflation will have, costs go up, and then the idea of carrying any type of debt into retirement, and then when and how much to withdraw from what source of income that you have available to you, making sure that you're doing the right strategies. Again, there's slides in the packet that I gave you that go into quite a bit more detail. So what? What does all of this mean? We talked about our journey. We talked about how we fuel it a little bit. So don't you want to just know that magic answer? Tell me, Ann, how much do I have to save? I would love that answer. I ask that question of financial planners and people that I meet all the time. What's the amount that I should save? And their answer is, it's personal. Your journey is personal. I have clients, they tell me, that live on 25% of their pre-retirement income, and I have clients that live on 125% of their pre-retirement income. So it's up to you. Keys, though, are knowing exactly how much income you're going to need based on what your goals are, and setting realistic goals for yourself so that you can get there. The replacement ratio that we most commonly see and target is between 70 and 85% of your pre-retirement income. And again, those are just guardrails. That's a thumb estimate. And as you start to age and get closer to retirement, you'll narrow in more specifically on what works for you. Key things that you will not have probably to manage in retirement, while they say 70 to 85%, is you won't have work-related expenses. Your taxes will decrease because of some sort of your income, maybe Social Security, for example. Maybe some of the retirement plans that you're investing in aren't taxable at the point that you withdraw them, so your tax base may look different. You no longer need to save for retirement because you've done that accumulation and you're in the spend down phase. You may not have dependents to support, and you may have paid off your debt before you realize you need it. So those are some of the more common things. Again, use that replacement calculation as a guideline, and then when retirement is, say, 5 years away or so, you start to narrow in your aperture on what is this really going to look like for me. Roadside assistance is the last thing. So mapping your retirement, what does this all mean? In this little workshop, in a very little bit of time, I would probably have raised a number of questions with all of the information that I've shared. You have more information in your packets. You've got homework materials, and you may have more questions than answers. Things to keep in mind: think about how you want to spend your retirement. Define your goal. Watch for roadblocks that can impact your retirement journey. Take inventory of your finances and make adjustments along the way. and then save through your U of M retirement plans. In addition, there are lots of resources out there for you. Review the checklist for your age. I gave you the Destination Retirement Workbook. There are a number of videos right on the EBD website here at the U of M. There's some on retirement basics. Keeping Your Dreams on Course is one that goes into deeper information than what I've covered here today. There's retirement and Social Security out there, Social Security and Medicare and estate planning. A host of resources that are available right on your own U of M website. In addition, we have retirement income projection tools on the U of M website, which is where your faculty plan is held at Skurian. And so there are calculators out there to help you define how much you should be saving now so that you can build up that nest egg. And then on the payout side of that, once you're retired, how long will it last? And then there's, we call it little widgets or dials that you can do to adjust those types of things for your own. And finally, I manage a team of plan specialists and plan advisors at Securian, and we're here for you. They will take phone calls from you, and they will host one-on-one meetings with you. So if you just give us a call, email us, we'd be happy to discuss your U of M retirement plan with you. Make sure that you're on course. Hopefully I made it within time. That is what I have for today, so thank you. I'm going to let it go.
Appreciate that. Wonderful. And we'll have time for questions at the end, too. For all the panelists at once, I think. Wonderful. Thank you. So next we're going to have Daryl Dahlheimer from Lutheran Social Service Financial Counseling. So I'll get his presentation up here, if all goes well. That's you?
Great.
All right, and then to advance, you just, when it's here, click there.
Click left. Okay.
Yes, perfect. Thank
So
you.
hello, everybody, and it's good to see you. And thank you to the work that the P&A team does to keep this institution going. And hello to everyone in Morris and Duluth and other places that are also listening in. So I want to tell you a little bit about our service. Financial Choice is the extra level of benefit that we give to U of M employees. To help, I like to say we serve 98% of people in the world. We don't necessarily serve the top 1% and the bottom 1% well because they're extremes, but we serve, I guess what I'm trying to say is most people could find something valuable in our benefit. That's a better way to say it. And I'd like to start with a joke because PowerPoints are dry and dusty. So I think the joke is just that we want to recognize that finances are so personal and so private that the real barrier isn't providing services, but making you comfortable to use those services. So this is my attempt at that. And in Minnesota, the rule is if you like the joke, you laugh loud, and if you don't like the joke, you laugh politely, okay? So the joke is that a person had their car broke down by the side of the road, and they pulled over and lifted the hood of the car and were looking inside, had no idea really what was going on. There's steam and things coming out. And all of a sudden, the person was aware that a cow, a full-sized adult cow, had sidled up to them, and the cow turned to them and said, "I'll bet you it's the carburetor." And they were very frightened by that, and they just took off running down the road, and they ran about a quarter mile down and found a farmer in the field and said, "You won't believe what just happened. I was sitting there, and they told the whole story." The farmer said, "Oh, I'm guessing that's Elsie. I wouldn't listen to her. She doesn't know a thing about carburetors." So I think the thing about finances is we all want to know things. You know, bright people can still not feel in charge of their personal finance, whether it's the new rules of how credit is going. Anyone who's ever bought a house knows the incredible experience of having page after page of complex documents shoveled your way, or maybe it's thinking about retirement or thinking about debts, and maybe it's not thinking about those at all, but someone in your family who's thinking about those. So that's what I hope to persuade you, is that we'd love to help you on any and all of that. The theme of our work is that person putting a victory sign up. That's the emotion we want. So one of the things we believe is that people have the right to learn how to conquer their debt, control and be in control of their finances, and achieve financial wellness. And the basic benefit is that we serve the U of M employee group by allowing you to have up to 6 sessions of free, confidential financial counseling. And you can do that meeting in person with our counselors, and I'll show you office locations in a minute, or it could be by phone, and it can also be by internet. One of the things that I think is really great is that we're Minnesota-based, and so we know a lot about Minnesota realities, about neighborhoods, about what it is like and what laws and special resources are here. So you're talking to someone in Minnesota, whether it's on phone or meeting them in person. So we like to think we're local and trusted for that. I should mention we're part of Lutheran Social Service. I've worked there for 17 years now, and LSS is a faith-based organization. All of our services, however, are completely secular, in the same way as seeing a Lutheran dentist or a Lutheran realtor, or okay, so we're going to serve absolutely everyone perfectly with that. We really take our cue from whatever your need is. So it's not coming through a set program so much as it really is financial counseling to see what your goals and your needs are. And many of those do, well, I'll show you what some of those involve. I also should just say that it's not only employees, but also defined as your household or immediate family members. So you'll see a case in a minute where someone was going to also involve their adult daughter in counseling. So the basic format of our counseling includes budget and debt counseling, which is just money management questions and helping with student loan debt, with financial, other kinds of debt, anything from payday loans to credit cards to medical bills. We have a specific service called Student Loan Repayment Counseling that's very useful for U of M employees because many of you have the option in your job, and it depends on the exact job description and things, but many of you have the option to pursue public service loan forgiveness as part of your solution. So you should ask us about that. There's credit report review, which is that credit reports are extremely important, even though they may not feel important to us. I'll give you one concrete example of that. When they've done a major study, Consumer Federation of America, the study was in January of 2016, just last year, for the first time ever, your credit score has a higher factor in pricing your car insurance. I'll just see a show of hands. How many people here ever drive a car? Okay, that's a common Minnesota U of M employee. Okay, so 20,000 employees, let's say we're going to be relevant to 19,000 on their car insurance costs. Your credit score is now a larger factor in pricing your car insurance than your driving record. So someone even with I'm not recommending getting a DUI and testing it out, but having a really great credit score and a DUI actually can be cheaper than having a perfect driving record and a bad score. So we really want people to do a wellness piece to get their credit report, understand scores, and build that. And lastly, we do housing counseling, including helping people think about keeping their homes if they're in trouble, but also reverse mortgage counseling, thinking through decisions about housing. We can help with that too. And of course, many these are all in the handouts that are available to you and will be posted, but financial wellness counseling, but also all these other kinds of additional pieces. And we'll take more questions at the end. Basically, if you think about Minnesota as a square piece of paper, at the top right-hand corner of that paper, we have an office in Duluth and in Superior, Wisconsin, and then on the Iron Range in Virginia, west in Brainerd and Mankato and Wilmer, and then in the metro, we have 2 offices in St. Paul and an office in Minneapolis and an office in St. Louis Park. And we have an office twice a month at Boynton Health Service right across from Kaufman Union. So very accessible. And of course, we serve the whole nation by phone. So feel free to do what's convenient for you. I feel proud that we've grown our service. So in the time that we started, we have done seen several hundred employees each year for one-to-one financial counseling sessions and led a series of workshops which have gotten ever more progressive. So in kind of 2014, 2015, I wrote down the topics. Most of them were about better budgeting and building a good credit score and paying back student loan debt. This year, or this spring, I should say, some of the topics included your money and your brain. So it's about behavioral finance and thinking more creatively about what we can do to understand our financial decisions. There's one going on either this week or next week called 420-somethings. Here's some things you could learn that 30-somethings want you to know. And so I think we really invite you to ask and let your human resources folks know what you'd like to hear. And come to some of these workshops and enjoy. It's all done in a lighthearted way that includes jokes, etc. Speaking of lighthearted, how about Sisyphus? One of the things I just really, is the Greek myth of endlessly pushing the rock up the hill to have it roll down. Many people experience that as the financial tone of saving for retirement or trying to get out of interest accumulating debt. But one of the things I liked out of this story was This was feedback from our client satisfaction surveys. As they said, when I departed from LSS, even though nothing material had changed, I felt much lighter. They shined a light of reason on this dark area of my finances, and I no longer felt like Sisyphus. So in many cases, we actually can do something, but in other cases, it's about helping establish control and take away any sense of embarrassment. We just want to be available to help people. And another similar piece is, speaking of tangible, is someone was saying they were so happy and told our counselor, when our counselor told them that the credit score had gone from 478 to 673, they burst out into tears, wanted to include their daughter in DC and future counseling, et cetera, et cetera. So there are some actual tangible takeaways for improving credit scores, getting debt management plans to accelerate debt repayment, feeling more in control. And one thing I want to call out to say thank you to the U of M for being progressive enough to bring this benefit to employees is that this year, 2016, the past 12 months of that, you all as a group paid back through our debt management plans almost $400,000 in credit card and medical debt to the community because we were able to help you do that, but you had the fortitude to do that. And since we started, there's been a large, sorry, that is not that true. Since we started, it's almost $400,000, and that becomes part of a larger mission where we help people in the state of Minnesota pay back over $21 million, which is just awesome to do. That, by the way, you can see on the slide is a mural of a tree of hope made of cut-up credit cards. People have done that. So the last thing is I just want to highlight one other thing that happened this year that we're piloting and seems to be taking off at Morris, Duluth, and on the Twin Cities campuses, is that we are offering as an employee benefit something built into your wellness program where if someone comes to a 4-session financial literacy class, I don't know what that is, but there's nothing to be alarmed if you're in Morris or Duluth. We're still here, and no asteroid has fallen. Okay, there we go. But one of the things that's nice is this 4-session class uses learning circles and a chance to do interactive small group discussion. So it's extremely non-threatening and very interesting for people of all financial levels, and it covers budgeting and debt reduction and building good credit and consumer protection. So we invite you, we're going to be expanding that likely in the fall, and invite you to come and consider getting some wellness points to learn about finances in a fun and easy way. And then I just want to know if there's any questions. I'll hold that till when the next person is done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can you get me out of that?
I will, absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Wonderful. And last, we're going to hear from Joyce Dorito about discussing college debt readiness. And I'll get you set up here.
I think it's funny, we're going to talk about college debt readiness. Are you ready for more debt?
Okay, and that's how you advance there. It's also this one? Yeah, great. It's on the arrows on the. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Well, again, my name is Joyce Dorito. I'm an associate professor of family and social science at the University of Minnesota. I am also a researcher who has a passion for youth and young adults. That is my passion. So what I'm going to talk about today is some of the work that I do, learning how young adults in particular, youth and young adults, learn about financial topics, what kind of behaviors and who influences or what influences those behaviors, and ultimately how behaviors relate to wellness or well-being. So I have been studying in 2 areas. One, I have this group of young adults. I started studying them in 2018 when they were freshmen in college. I have just finished collecting a 4th wave of data from the same group of young adults, and they're approaching 30. And it's been fascinating to see how their behaviors have changed since they were freshmen in college, and in turn, which is the topic of today, what student loan debt looks like to them and feels like to them. So I'm looking around the room here. I am sure that most of you are either done with the student debt phase or you've got it now and you've got to try to figure out how to get out of it. But what I like to focus on is what I call know before you owe. When I first came to Minnesota in 2014, I was connected with lovely extension educators who were looking at repaying student loans. what do you do now that you've got this debt? And so we kind of spin things on their ear a little bit when I come around to say, well, what happens if we start to talk with young adults before they actually get all the debt? Let's face it, it's a whole lot easier before you're in debt to think about what you do without it. And so that's kind of the approach that we're taking. What I'm going to talk with you today about is a process, what I believe can help you in your day-to-day finances, whether it's about student loan debt or retirement debt. I focus on process. There's no answer. I've already heard that before. There's no simple answer. There's no one right answer. So I want to talk to you about process. So, know before you go. Okay. Okay. Dr. Seuss was always one of my favorites, forever and ever and ever. And I love this because what it says is, oh, the places you would go if you didn't have all that student loan debt. And those of you who talk with undergraduates and you talk with young adults, we have a millennial generation that is the highest educated group of young adults ever in the history of the United States. They're also the most indebted group of young adults ever. So I ask them periodically, what does this look like? So what do we know about student loan debt? And first there's the downside. A third of our young adults with student loan debt are in deferment or forbearance, meaning they're not making regular payments on it. 7% nationally are in default. That's a pretty big number. We know, more importantly, for the work that I do, it's not just that they have debt. It's when you have student loan debt, it really takes a chunk out of your life. Think about any debt. Think about any stress, because certainly financial stress is a real eroder there. But it drops your well-being. So in my study, I have over 900 students or former students. Those who have any student loan debt, whether it's a little bit of amount or a lot of amount, have lower overall well-being, reduced life satisfaction, poor relationships. It just kind of eats away at them. And ultimately, and this is for those of you who have young adult kids, this might be an important one, is they're deferring all of these milestones that have been associated with being an adult. They're marrying later. They're deciding whether or not to have children at all, and if so, much later. They're talking about this idea of whether we get married or not. Does money get in the way of us getting married? And for those of you, again, who have young adult children, a lot of them are having a difficult time engaging in their career. So we talk about the wonderful retirement income plans we have here at the University of Minnesota. A lot of the corporate employees are cutting back on those plans. A lot of young adults are working in jobs that are not even full-time jobs, so they're not even getting these benefits. So you kind of put all these pieces together, and it's no surprise why a lot of young adults are saying, is it really worth it? Is education really worth it? You'd think I'm the third person, I'd be better at this, right? But it went the other way. Okay, so is it worth it? So here's why it is worth it. It is worth it to get a higher education. First of all, the unemployment rate, even during the recession, was much lower for those with a college education compared to those who did not have a college degree. More importantly, many of the new jobs that are being created in the new technologies in fields that were not even around 20 years ago are going to those with higher education, no college degree. And when it comes to the income level, it's worth about $17,000 per year. So for those of you who are the financial planners, you look at that number and you say, over a 20-year or 30-year career, that's quite a bit of money that you're getting there. So when I hear young adults say to me, I don't think it's really worth it, I bring this information to them and say, yeah, it is worth it, okay? However, wait for the punchline. Okay. Not if you have to go into such debt that you're never going to get out of it, is what it comes down to. what I find fascinating is, are you all familiar with the quotes that people talk about and the impact of student loan debt on well-being, or is this all kind of like, what's interesting to me is the fact that there's a real split in who gets hit by student loan debt. So it's not, there's a huge student loan crisis and we're all going to die. That's not it. And it's not that there is no student loan crisis. You know, they're going to get out of debt. It'll take them a few years, but they're going to be fine. Well, the truth is really much different than that. Young adults whose parents help them pay for education or save for education, those who had scholarships to go on forward, those who are able to find gainful employment in jobs like engineering or economics, they're doing fine. Bill, am I going to get time? No.
Oh, sorry about that. It's hard for me to stay still. I'm tethered. Oh, okay. I'll try. Okay. Whereas those who are first-generation college students, students of colors, students from lower-income families, they're having a really tough time. Even those who have full-time employment, and I can tell you that in my sample anyway, there's no difference in those who are employed versus unemployed and the amounts that they earn, irrespective of race, ethnicity, and whether they were lower income or upper middle income. No differences in employment. There is a difference in student loan debt, huge difference. So how do you do that? How do you keep them out? When we started this process, what we found was most workshops, many of the workshops, and all the information about student loan debt was given to students. Made sense, right? They're in high school, they go to all these, great. Family was not involved. Okay. So the first thing we changed is there has to be ongoing communication between the students and the family to figure out what makes sense. And we already heard some indication that in the United States, people don't like to talk about money. Okay, we don't talk about money in our family. That's kind of not good. But I am a really staunch advocate if parents and their young adult children and their children are not talking about finances in a very tangible way, how are they going to learn it? How are they going to know how to think about it? And frankly, how do they know what their parents want them to do and what they want to do and how they're different or the same? So we started with this idea of communication. Communication, from the pictures you can see, it's not about sitting them down to talk about money, because anyone who has kids knows as soon as you say, let's talk, they go, okay? So sometimes you sit down over a cup of coffee or a bowl of cereal, and you look for those moments when you can talk to them in innocuous ways. There's so much written in the newspaper and on television today to talk about these topics, not as what are you doing or what am I doing, but what is happening out there and how might that affect us? What do you think about that? We find that the young people who are able to talk with their parents, who have spoken with their parents about money, have much stronger sense of awareness, stronger self-efficacy about money, and much more responsible financial behaviors than those who don't. Okay? So looking for those teachable moments, those fun times. This is the huge differentiator in what your children do when they go off to college, this idea of setting expectations. What I have here is this little image that talks about the little voice in your head. And I'm quite old, and to this day, there are things when I hear in my head my mother say, you don't need that. You don't need that. Okay? Or you've already taken care of that. Or when are you going to take care of this? Okay? You're there in their head. So even if they don't want to admit it, parents have a huge influence on what it is their children do. So when it comes to college expectations and college loans, if what you're giving your children or what they're hearing is it's important to get a college education and by all means you definitely have to go and get a college degree, great. That's going to give them the motivation to go and succeed. If you stop short there and don't say, how are we going to pay for this? you're setting them up as 18-year-old young people to make some pretty big life decisions without understanding finances the way you do. They have little experience about it. And frankly, a huge difference today for young adults than when I was much younger. You can get a lot more trouble today. When I was 23, I got my first credit card. It was an Esso gas card. That's not how it works today. As soon as these kids are ready to go to college, even if, particularly if they're getting student loan debt, can you believe that? That counts as income to get credit cards. So our kids today are being asked to make some pretty big decisions about finances without understanding even the basics of finances. And if you set those expectations, they will stick with them. Okay, almost there. Last thing is exploring and comparing options. When young people want to go to college and they have this image of them being in a particular school, one of the things I encourage parents to look at is look at their options. When you get award letters from school, look at what you're being offered in terms of financial aid. Look at what you're being offered in terms of scholarships. Look at what you're being offered in terms of loans. And a lot of young people today don't understand when they get that financial award letter, they see award and think, great, look at all this money I got. And half of it is loans. So it's this idea of helping them to explore and compare options so they make better decisions. That's how you invest wisely in higher education. My research shows me it's that parenting voice, that setting expectations, that ongoing communications, your kids trust you. And in a world today, that's worth a whole lot. So I encourage you to follow the process. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to start now by just thanking all the presenters and giving them a round of applause. That was great. We really appreciate it. So we have time for questions now, how this will work. Unfortunately, it seems like our room microphones are not working, so I'd like to invite all of the presenters up to the front here. So the podium is where you'll have to answer, and I apologize that we don't have a more savvy solution for you right now. We'll take questions online as well as in the room, and the other thing is we'll repeat the questions after they're asked for the benefit of people watching online so they know the question that we're answering. So I think we'll start with a question that came in online. Is Tammy.
Okay, so this question is for Gerald. Are the counselors at LSS financial advisors and or fiduciaries?
Okay, that's a great question. To repeat it, are the counselors at LSS financial advisors or fiduciaries? The answer is no. That's a different whole field. It's kind of like a doctor is also not necessarily a surgeon or whatever. So where we are fiduciary, where we do have a fiduciary duty is that as counselors, we all are under a code of ethics, and the code of ethics is that it's not a sales environment. It's an environment where the client's best interest is built into our ethical stance. So it's not a non-sales, non-commercial environment, and we're not financial advisors. In just a brief history of this field is that there is not one standard for financial advisors, nor for financial educators, nor for financial counselors. But what we are is, in the same way that you want your bank to say FDIC on the door, or you want your credit union to say NCUA, because that's the governing body that tells you your deposits are safe and that there's no funny business going on, in my industry, which is nonprofit financial counseling, the nonprofit world, NFCC, or National Foundation for Credit Counseling, is that governing body. And we are the largest Upper Midwest NFCC member, so all of our counselors are NFCC certified. But financial counseling is much more about helping people with personal finance rather than investments. Great question.
Other questions in the room now?
Yeah, I would like personally to go over, if you could, typical tax liability and the supplemental health care cost for retirement.
I'm sorry.
Typical tax liabilities, like on your 401k, preferred, things like that, Social Security, and supplemental health care costs.
I'm not specifically going to get into the Social Security, so not an expert in that, but on most, I'll speak specifically to the U of M retirement plans because you're deferring into them on a pre-tax basis. So, come up pre-tax. When you start to draw them out, they're all taxed as ordinary income. So that's the way that they're treated. You may have other tax saving vehicles that don't have the special qualified status that you're on an IRS basis that your retirement plan does. So they may be funded with after-tax contributions. So on those, when you draw, you're going to pay tax on the gains and not on the basis that you put in. And the other bucket is if you have any type of a Roth, if you've heard of that, that's another special tax qualified investment vehicle. And the advantages of a Roth are, again, you have to meet qualifications. If you hold it for a certain time and take it out after certain ages, all the investment on that is tax-free. So there's a whole host of options that are out there. I suggest talking with someone. And when you get into that drawdown strategy, it's how you minimize your tax as you're drawing it out. But out of the particular retirement plans that the U has, they're all taxable to you in the year that the income is taken out. Good answer? Okay.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the use deferred comp plan and 403B? How are they different?
I'm sorry. So the question was the difference between the 403B plan and the use plan. So the use plan falls under just code section 401A. It's a defined contribution plan. So the income limits on that they're going to be different than that 403B plan, and the use faculty plan, the U has responsibility for contributing a percentage of income, and you have responsibility for a percentage of income, and that comes out every pay period. The 403B plan is funded solely with your contributions. They still come out payroll through payroll deduction and their percentage of your income, but they're solely by you. You purchase contract, you have investment options. They look similar under the hood. There are just some different requirements when it comes to funding. And limitations, I think the upper limit on the 401A it's up in the 50,000s, where on the 403B, that TSA, or tax sheltered annuity, I think the income limit is around 18,500 unless you're over 50. Then there's some catch-ups that happen there. And I believe on there's an optional 457 where you can defer another 18,000.
That's wondering.
Oh.
I don't think I called it.
Okay.
457.
3. Yeah, all different code sections.
457, how is that different from the
Actually, it's some of the same things. The 457 and the optional 403B, those are both solely funded with your contributions. And the limits on them are the same. The contribution limits are the same, and the catch-up contributions. There's some differences on when you can take the funds out. You can take loans against the optional 403B. The 457 doesn't have a loan provision in them. There's just some very, very small defining differences.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have another question online that I'm holding now. Okay. Before we move, there's a question for Daryl, but before that one, can Victorian specialists talk to us about the 403B and the 457 options?
Yes. Did you say, do they want me or the specialists that work on my team?
Oh, she just said great.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. We can talk about all of it.
Okay. And then a question for Daryl. As a U employee, is the process to access financial counseling through LSS the same as a regular consumer?
Oh, no, that's great to say. No, on the slides and on the handouts, there's a dedicated toll-free number. So I'm glad you asked that. The question was, is there a difference between U of M employees accessing our services at LSS versus the general consumer? So please do not just look in the phone book and call LSS, because they may not know what you're talking about. We do. We have a dedicated toll-free line, and there's also a dedicated website. So look on the handout, and please call us, and we're open Monday through Friday, the scheduling team, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or 8 to 5. And and they'll set up an appointment for you.
Can Securian and/or LSS provide guidance on allocation between a 529 and a retirement?
Well, I'd be happy to answer that from our
For some of the young folks, like folks like myself, who are 10-month-old, saving for college, but also at the same time a little bit older and thinking about retirement at the same time.
Sure, and like many, so the question was about giving advice around allocation between different financial needs, including not only between different financial retirement plans, but also between, for example, saving for your children's college plan versus your own retirement and things. So what I'll tell you from the LSS perspective is because we're not financial advisors, we would not be able to comment on investment advice and that kind of allocation, but we have a role in, for example, helping figure out honest conversations about your financial goals and values and making a budget that works, and finding money to save would be like our expertise. I'll turn it to my Securian colleague for that.
Yep. Specifically on the staff that reports to me, we're not licensed to give advice either. However, I have an entire financial network of independent advisors that if I can connect you with.
One was being an independent advisor, or if you have the resources, it's just a matter of allocation.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And I would say, I would encourage anybody to connect with an independent financial advisor. They are going to give you a free consultation before there is any charge for services. That's just standard. And so you can ask a lot of questions in probably an hour of time that are going to get you on your way.
This is for Daryl. You had mentioned something on a student loan that agreement looking for an actual problem.
Yes. So could I say more about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program? So one thing I will say is one of our types of help that we give, and it's been very popular among U of M employees, is student loan repayment counseling. And we have expertise in that and are certified in that area. And one of the things that's most intriguing is that there are many options such as income-based repayment that changes how much you might pay to make it more affordable, or extended repayment programs. There are certain types of loan forgiveness programs, so it's too detailed to go into here, but I want to intrigue you to ask more about that, and we can certainly point you to places that have very clear written descriptions of it. But as a institution that's an EDU at the end, as a government or nonprofit institution, many of the jobs here qualify for the area of public service loan forgiveness, where, for example, if you're working for the government or for a nonprofit, many of those jobs allow you to pay to extend, for example, to extend your 10-year repayment of loans into 30 years, to pay a bit during that 10 while working for 10 years, and then the other remaining 20 years are forgiven. So there's everyone should be intrigued to Google search public service loan forgiveness, and there's a lot of great options. I'll just give you one URL. So a great plain English place to the National Consumer Law Center that's not going to sell you anything is the URL is 4 words: student loan borrower assistance.org. So that's a very safe place to get great information on all, like what jobs qualify and don't. Student loan borrower assistance.org.
Can I add to that too?
Please.
Okay. For those of you whose children are taking out these loans, not all loans qualify under the PUB on this program. So before you even take out the loan, that is something that you're going to want you and your child to investigate to see what the options are. The other thing you have to, before you go, pull that together. And the other thing is when it comes to after graduation, a big thing is looking at consolidating loans. Be very careful. That's the second time when you can lose this benefit. If you can, there are certain types of loans that once consolidated, you lose that option. So just before you go in.
Are those programs subject to being repealed in the political environment?
Oh, I'm happy to answer that as Daryl and not as Lutheran Social Service. So the question was, are those types of programs likely to be subject to political repeal in the current environment? And you know, there's absolutely no one who can say with that. However, all the more reason to get started with public service loan forgiveness if you did qualify, because most programs, even when they get repealed, are grandfathered in my experience of government. So it's just, to me, a motivator to face student loan debts and bring them out of deferment and forbearance rather than have them sit and sit and sit. But no one has a crystal ball. I'm sorry, what?
Well, the ADA is, there's a lawsuit because some people were qualified for a little bit, now they're saying that they're not qualified correctly to that process.
I have no idea what the Americans with Disabilities Act would do with that. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. You have to be our moderator and tell us who we can talk to.
Yeah, we're not in the middle there.
How to find a certified financial planner that's reputable. Any suggestions? Sure. Again, one of the things we do is we teach consumer finance, so I would just say for finding a reputable certified financial planner, of course, you shop around like you would for a doctor or for your realtor or other professionals. I think word of mouth is actually helpful in that. I think interviewing some may be helpful. Getting a free consultation might be helpful, all those kinds of things. But there is the key distinction about whether someone is a fiduciary or not, which is, are they your concern for you, or are they have additional options to get funded by third parties? So I personally often recommend a fee-only financial planner because they have the fiduciary responsibility baked in. And even if you don't do that, I always recommend asking, are you a fiduciary responsibility to me? They have to answer truthfully.
I think the only thing I want to add to that is interview a couple of people, and just like your doctor, you want to make sure that you have a connection because you're going to work much better with that person.
Does LSS housing advice for financial counseling and housing counseling include purchasing? It does include pre-purchase counseling to get your credit ready for purchase because, it affects the mortgage rate to get your down payment set, and certainly conversations about where it fits in the budget. One way we differ, for example, is most realtors or pre-qualified loan officers are concerned with getting you the most large loan that you can possibly qualify for, and we're concerned with sustainability. So I would just say we would have some nice conversations with the client, if they would like, about what fit in their budget and all the pros and cons. Again, it's such a complex personal decision that we just think following the lead of the client with some practical advice is where we go with that. Does that help? Okay.
To follow up on the public service loan forgiveness, is there some other program? Because isn't the first one go into effect not until October? 120 months of consecutive payments.
Okay, so briefly, and Joyce may know more about this. Briefly, the question was, what about the public service loan forgiveness? Do some go into effect at certain times or not? I think that if I can anticipate what you're saying, is this program originated in 2007. So this year, 2017, for those who actually engaged that program and signed up for that, 10 years later, this is the first loans ever being forgiven by the federal government are right now. But there probably are some programmatic limits on when you took out your loan and what loans, as our colleague just said, what loans might be covered. For example, private loans, not. Plus loans, I don't know. So I think it's worth looking at but if you go to that URL I looked at, they're all spelled out about that.
One thing that you may be referring to is up until, well, it's this kind of dicey thing, but now the amount forgiven is actually taxable.
One question on the LSS component. You mentioned immediate family members, household members. Do they have to be covered by the plan?
No, for our purposes, and stop me if there's a benefit person here who has different information. Our spirit of this has been to say, baked into our contract, we're going to help U of M employees and anyone that they define as family functionally. So there's no matching of eligibility numbers or social security numbers or something like that. So use us.
It sounds like there's a lot of interest in regards to student loan repayment, and I just want to put a plug in that next week, Mastering Student Loan Repayment, LSS will have 3 workshops on campus next week on that. It will be a full hour.
One of our colleagues shared that just a reminder that on Minneapolis campus and on St. Paul campus next week, there's a total of 3 workshops for an hour each on student loan repayment options by a person who I consider my expert staff person, Shannon. So please feel free to attend.
So there was a graph, I think this was a graph from here, that showed the percentages of retirement income and what age range repay, or what age range could repay in those age groups. Repay, I'm repeating.
You said it was in Anne's presentation? See if we can bring it up here.
Yeah, you want to go back to
I think it's this one, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, placement ratio? I don't think it was placement. I think it was what you said, where the retirement income goes.
Ah.
Is it this one? No.
No, I think there's further back.
We will find it. Ah, there we go.
Sources of income?
Placement ratio?
Sure.
Is that correct?
Yes, what age range what age range could you find that graph being mostly true?
I would say your current retirees. People who are retired currently. So if you're 20, 30 years out, it doesn't look like this. Perfect. Okay.
Another question in the room?
All right, I was going to ask personally. It's kind of a personal thing. So I work for a town, and I have a 457 with them. What's the benefit or what's the risk of rolling that over into what I am working with now that I'm under you?
The benefit would be that all of your assets would be in one place.
Yeah.
And again, this is personal.
Yeah.
I get asked this question often. That's what I want to share. Not at the microphone. I want to share. So it's a lot of it's where do you want to manage your assets? Do you want to get less pieces of paper or less accounts to look at? Then rolling it together is probably a good solution for you. The option that you have is you can roll it into the faculty 401A plan. It takes any assets.
Without being, without it being, I don't think it's taxed, but without it being penalized.
That's correct. If you contact my staff, they'll actually get on the phone and do this with you. We do that daily, and I want to share on the flip side, keeping the assets in the plan. I'd love for you to do that. I'm not going to lie, but that isn't for everybody. You may have an advisor and moving them out somewhere else. We're going to help you do that as well because your health is what matters and your financial being. So. Oh, the question was, what are the advantages or I'm going to say risks, or are there any drawbacks to maybe rolling the other qualified assets, specifically a 457, into the faculty retirement plan?
So Joyce, you mentioned you're an associate professor. Do you teach course?
I will be in the fall. In fall, yes. There are 3 courses already offered on our campus that deal with basic cash or credit, that deal with financial budgeting and management, resource management, and then a 3rd one that's actually in financial counseling and coaching. So and we'll have a 4th class that we add in the fall, which is designed to help those who are interested in helping families understand the kinds of financial challenges and obstacles families encounter all through the lifespan.
I have a question for Joyce as well. You talk about young adults. I know there's no prescriptive plan for kids at this age to do this, but at what age generally would you recommend that you start having this conversation with kids?
14, 16? I mean, and if it is, what would that kind of person look like?
That's a great question. There's no too early age. It's the way the material is presented. And my whole approach is communication about money should take place in context because, frankly, whether you're intentional about it or not, you're already teaching your kids about finances. So when your child says, can I have this, and you say, we can't afford that, they grow up understanding that money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford it. If your child says, I want this, and you say that's not in the budget, that's a lesson that you're starting to give them. Those are lessons that you can give when kids are 3 and 4 and 5 years old. When they start to be adolescents, the challenge here is it's a tough time to start the conversation. If you haven't been having these conversations in context, when your child is 13, 14, 15, you don't know anything anymore. Okay, so they're not going to listen to you. However, even then, you can get them to talk about it if you make it relevant to them. So college is a perfect example. If they're working summer jobs, your expectation is that they're going to be saving some for college. That's the time to have the conversation. So from my perspective, you have them all the time. It's just you're trying to look for the relevant touch points, the content that they're interested in, and you're doing it in the context of this is family decision making. This is not money per se.
Well, the comment.
My comment was that not all loans, okay, are eligible for the loan forgiveness program. If you have seen your child's award statement, there are many different types of student loans. There's subsidized, unsubsidized, and within each of those categories, there are Stafford loans, there are Perkins loans. Each one of them has its own set of rules and regulations. And so whether or not you can combine them or whether or not they're eligible for public loan forgiveness depends on the type of loan. That information should be available to you when you investigate the particular type of loan. So before you take the loan out, you want to know those pieces. Okay, sure.
I think with that, we'll wrap up our formal question and answer. We have some more time here with our speaker, so if you'd like to join us out there, cookies and drinks in the next room over there, if there's so much time for some informal questions. But thank you so much again. I'll give you a round of applause. We really appreciate it. That was very helpful. Thanks everyone for coming, and I also wanted to say a special thank you to the University Senate for the cookies and also to the Dining Contract Administration for the donation of the drinks. We're very grateful. And also someone online I wanted to quickly mention said it's Financial Literacy Month in April. So we're glad that we could provide this conversation today about what we think is a really important conversation for staff.